And this is really kind of the thing that ends up building most of my training philosophy. It kind of comes from this type of underpinning. Something that I used to hear from time to time, I hear it less and less often these days, which I think is a good thing. It means that we're making some progress. But occasionally you'll hear someone say that we all have the same basic physiology. Training should be roughly the same for everyone. And to that, I just want to give you a few examples. This is Mark.
Let's go, man! Come on, Mark! He's got 6:06, he makes 50 to 59 puff or more. One of our Masters world record holders. This is a record for Mark, American record!
Mark's 58 years old. I've worked with Mark. Mark's been part of Reactive Training Systems for longer than pretty much anyone at this point. I think he started working with us in 2009 or so. So like he goes pretty far back. And he's got a very extensive training history prior to that. He's been over 30 years under the barbell. And with that comes a lot of injuries, a lot of it minor, wear and tear, but some of it more significant. He's torn his bicep tendon and had a number of other things that happened, some back injuries that have taken him out of the game for a while. And had a lot of wear and tear, had a lot of things happen. That's a lot of experience under the bar. Now, over the time that I've worked with Mark, we've gradually figured out that the thing that he responds best to training-wise is training 3 sessions a week. In particular, a strategy that we've called half frequency. And we'll get more into what that is and what that looks like later, but imagine taking a training week and stretching it over 2 weeks. He still ends up with 3 sessions per week, but it's all spread out, so maybe he's only training the competition movements every other week. So that's already seems not necessarily typical, but for Mark, that seems to work the best. He gets the best response when we do that. Then this guy, hey, you made the presentation, buddy.
All right.
30 years old.
Oh, this is going to be close.
Well, the record today is 16-second setup. Can we see a 10-second setup? Apparently we can.
Was that deep enough?
It was.
Well done.
One thing that I've learned from working with Bryce over the years is that he's extremely adaptable. And what I mean by that is that if you give a lifter a training strategy, then they adapt to it, they get better from it for a while, and then they stop. Trains 4 times a week. We've got a lot out of ultra high frequencies in the past, even doing the competition lifts, all 3 competition lifts in every session. Controlling the volume, of course, but that very high frequency. And then the third lifter is Liz Craven. She's 43 years old.
Australia, a round of applause!
Do y'all want to see a world record? 339 pounds, she weighs 113.
339, 113-pound body weight. Let's go from Australia. First world record right here. Let's see what Coach Tuscherer got to say in the corner. Strong walk out here.
she's got a rather unbelievable work capacity. So one thing from working with Liz, we'll talk about stress index this weekend. So I'll add some more clarity to what I'm talking about here. But Liz tolerates well about 150% of the training stress that a typical well-trained powerlifter can handle, which is kind of ridiculous. She doesn't get beat up from it. She doesn't seem to affect her negatively, other than it takes more time in the gym. She responds well to it. She never really complains about training or work or any of it. And she does really well on 2 microcycles a week. So whereas Mark, I said a half frequency would be like stretching the training over 2 weeks. A 2x frequency is like compressing that training week so that you're speeding up the rhythm. You're getting 2 microcycles in every week. If we look at these 3 examples, it kind of hopefully puts to rest the idea that, same basic physiology, training should be generally the same. That you have 3 lifters and 3 very different approaches to training that we've all figured have worked better than anything else. And we've tried lots of things. And this is what's kind of shaken out to be the best thing. Over time, things happen. You maybe can't do one exercise or another, at least not in the same way that you used to. So if there's that, if you may have some change like that, like why not some other change, some other adaptation where the thing that you respond to just doesn't work like it used to. So these things change over time. So the way I describe this is it's like trying to find your way through a cave in the dark. So imagine that you're in this cave in the dark and you're trying to find your way out. So getting out of the cave is like getting stronger, right? So how do you get out of the cave in the dark? Well, you just kind of grope around. You feel your way through the cave, just looking for the exit. And I think that's kind of where a lot of us are training-wise. Just looking for the best way to get stronger. You're just searching. But it's a little bit worse than that, because not only are you trying to find your way through the cave in the dark, after a while, it's like all the rocks in the cave move around. So just as you're starting to feel your way and build this mental map of how things are, all the rocks move around because your body's adapting. There's maybe an exercise that you can't do anymore. You don't respond to a certain percentage range like you used to, or something changes. The training that you do has an effect, and that effect matters. I mean, hopefully the training has an effect, right? We're not coming in here lifting weights so that it has no effect. That's not what we're after. So the best way changes from time to time. So we have been talking, or kind of continuing to talk about personalizing your technical models. Like, we can start with a model of what good technique looks like, but then there's a lot of individual deviation that happens there. So let's just start with what you guys are learning in the practical scenarios. These technical breakdowns leave clues rather, for where we can get the best return on our training effort. So let's say that you do a set and you have some sort of technical breakdown. Why did that technical breakdown occur? Well, maybe you were just trying something a little different. It didn't work. So, okay, that's kind of the closest thing that you can get to non-information. It could be just like a mental lapse. We saw that a few times. You've got too many things to think about, or it's just new. Sometimes you get distracted. Now maybe you have a technical breakdown, you just kind of can't help it, right? I think yesterday we probably saw this most often in the squat. As squats got heavier, I saw more people kind of exhibit the chest fall pattern. I know I said that to a number of you. That's when you are in the bottom position, you start to come up, the knees go back and the butt comes up, kind of out of sync with the barbell. I call that chest fall for short, and we'll reference that a few times because it's a super common technical breakdown, and it's pretty easy to imagine. So that's what I'm talking about when I say chest fall. Now, if you were one of the ones that had a chest fall pattern, why did that happen? Probably you can't really help it. You're probably not trying to do that. It's not that you just weren't focused on it or something like that. It's probably that you're just searching for better force production. You know, especially if it's a heavy weight, you're just trying to stand up. You're not really thinking about that aspect of it very much. So in my view, we can use specialized movement drills to help develop force production in the way that we would like it to develop. Okay, we'll try to develop force production so that when you're kind of searching for force, the strongest pattern is the pattern that's mechanically advantageous, the good technique pattern. And then there's just the issue of just not having precise enough control. You see this, I'd say probably most often on the bench press, with touches that are inconsistent. You know, elbows a little flared, not flared enough, touch a little too high, a little too low. Sometimes that stuff happens. You just have to practice. That is kind of taking a step back, slowing things down a lot of times, pauses, slower eccentrics, just slower tempos in general. A lot of times those things can help developing that precise control. Talk about RPE and like what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to do for your training. This is an idea, a message that I'm not sure. Well, let me ask it this way: who thinks that other people screw up their RPEs a lot? So let's talk about what it is and how it can be useful and the purpose and things like that. But before I do, I want to tell you guys a story. So back in 2012, I was just out of the military and traveling around doing seminars and visiting family and just various things. And I had a friend in Florida who asked me if I would come and lift at his competition. He's putting on a competition. I was going to be in the area. He asked if I would compete. I said, sure. You know, it wasn't a major thing. I wasn't peaked, especially big for this meet or anything. 2012, so I'm still using some top-down planning approaches. This was not the peak of the annual plan by any stretch. Just a small competition. A couple weeks before, I was visiting my parents, and I went to the gym for a training session, and on some random set of deadlift warm-ups, I injured my back. It was like my last warm-up, so it wasn't anything heavy, and I was setting up to initiate the pull, and I felt a pop in my back, and you know, it was one of those, I'd done it before, I knew immediately, like, well, so this session's over, and we'll see how bad it is in the next 24 to 48 hours. And of course, it got stiff, and I was definitely not training for a while after that, but you know, we'll see. I just so happened to have a seminar in California, so I get on a plane, fly to California. That's where I met Quinn Hinnock for the first time, and I don't know if you guys know who Quinn is, but he's a physical therapist, and It was something like, "Hi, I'm Mike. I hurt my back. Can you help me?" And he was like, "Well, yeah, you strained or otherwise injured something in your back. Take it easy. It'll probably be okay in a few days or a week or something. You'll be able to start training again." So of course I started the process immediately, and I'm thinking, like, I've got this competition in 2 weeks or so. I'm not training right now. We'll see what happens. You know, probably just take a token deadlift at this competition and move on. Well, it loosened up and it got better rather quickly, but I'm still thinking, like, yeah, I'll be able to do the meet, but it probably won't be a big deal on the deadlift because it's not that important of a meet. I haven't trained for 2 weeks. It got good enough so that I was able to do my last training session. My last training session went fine. Enough to where I said, "Oh, maybe I'll be able to take some real deadlift attempts." Still wasn't thinking anything out of the ordinary. So I showed up to the competition. I went through my squats. They went fine, about how I expected. Bench was bench. And for the deadlift, I took my opener. I don't remember what the exact numbers were, but let's say somewhere around 350 or so for the opener. And it moved like an opener moves, and we called for 365, say, on the second attempt, and that went well. And we put in the third attempt. Would have been like 377.5 was like the planned third attempt at that point. So we put it in, and I was talking to my handler. It was 2.5 kilos below my personal best. And I said to him, like, "Do you think this is dumb? You know, 2.5 kilos below personal best at some random local meet, you know, maybe we should go for it, you know." And so a little meathead math, you don't tie a personal best, you have to go for it, right? So we put it on. We put on 382.5, and so that was the most I've ever deadlifted in competition. And if you don't know much about what's happened in the time since then, so that was 2012 or 13, I continued to compete and do well, but then slowly had some pain issues and stuff like that. I haven't competed since 2016, and maybe I'll get back to the platform at some point. Maybe I'll set a new PR at some point, or maybe not. That might be the most weight that I ever deadlift in my life. And I think back sometimes that if we had played that different, if I had gone for 377, then that lift doesn't happen, you know. And what if you miss some opportunity to lift the most that you'll ever lift in your life, and you never get that chance again, you know? And the reason I think this story is relevant is taking advantage of that kind of opportunity is what auto-regulated training is really about at its core. And that's a big part of why I advocate for auto-regulated training, and RPE in particular is a tool that fits under that larger umbrella. Auto-regulated training is starting with a good plan and then making course corrections to that plan. You take what's there. If you're having a good day, you're having a good day. Load it up. I think that you could make the argument that it's going to be better for your long-term development. If you're strong, then lift more weight, and it helps you get more strong. And then also there's a sentimental piece to it too. You never know when you're going to have your strongest day, and it would be nice to take advantage of those things. But it goes the other way as well. If you're not having a good day, then you make course corrections, and you manage your risk, and make sure that you're available for those good days when they happen.